Whatever Good May Come by Dara Dietz. Narrated by April M. Barrow. Chapter 1. The Gift. Matthew 18:6. But whosoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Why does a God of love allow an innocent child to be abused and neglected? For years I tried but could not resolve this question. I accepted what the Apostle Paul wrote in Corinthians. For now, we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. As I have matured in my walk with the Father, I have discovered answers that have satisfied my soul. I believe the Father has given each of us free will. We can choose to be evil if we like. We can choose to hurt others. We live in a world of sin. By allowing free choice, the Father has permitted that evil, pain, and suffering will exist in this world. Knowing this would have to be, our Father of love also designed that our trials would be our teachers. Our biggest hurts are our biggest gifts. As I look back over the troubled years of my life, I can see the Father held me close to his heart, never leaving any part of my life to chance. I have come to understand that trials are God's tools for refining us. How we accept or reject life's trials determine the work these events will exert in our lives. I have learned that when I thank the Father for every experience that touches my life, I realize the gifts these events leave in their wake. How does a person go from victim to victor? What is the first step in the healing journey from tempest-tossed victim to rock-steady child of the Father? Molestation and neglect deeply scarred the early years of my life. Any happy childhood memories are laced with the arsenic of abuse. Old men stealing a treasure that was mine alone to give. My payback was a piece of candy and a temporary escape from the battles at home. Our pantry seldom contained enough food to satisfy a family of 7. I often disappeared for hours at a time, even as a youngster, without the notice of my parents. I felt invisible, unloved, and afraid. As a child, I believed with all my heart that God saw me and loved me. The Father alone understood the twisted roads I would have to walk. He alone knew the end of each road and what I needed to reach safety. I knew him as my invisible friend, my constant companion. I clung to my Heavenly Father desperately as the only dependable source of guidance in my life. My parents, 2 sisters, 2 younger brothers, and I were the Pace family. Despite the fact I was born second, many of the duties that would naturally fall to the oldest were shifted to me. My older sister, Barbara, had been born with a hip deformity that required numerous surgical procedures, followed by months of bed rest. The 3 little ones, my younger sister Marie, and 2 little brothers, Thomas and Mark, were close in age and maturity. My fondest childhood memories often settle on Sabbath mornings in church with my father. A small, close-knit Seventh-day Adventist community formed the boundaries of my childhood. As Adventist, my family attended church on Saturdays. On any given Sabbath, I sat proudly dressed in my best clothes beside my father in church. My sisters and I generally wore tights because our parents firmly believed we should keep our legs modestly covered and warm. I sported soft, wispy bangs with shoulder-length hair, just like regular girls. Thomas and Mark sported smart little 3-piece suits. Mother seldom attended church. She preferred to remain home because her extreme obesity never went unnoticed at church. I relished sitting quietly in the circle of Daddy's arm while occupying myself with crayons and paper during the service. Always the gentleman in my eyes, my father made me feel important. My mind holds the picture of him lowering the hymnal to eye level for me so that I could follow the words with his finger as we sang them. In Sabbath school, we sang Jesus Loves Me. I loved him too. I experienced this truth in my heart as my little voice joined in the chorus. Our teachers shared mission stories about how Jesus took care of those who loved and served him. I decided to always love Jesus, so we could always be friends. I remember a lesson that my Sabbath school teacher taught one day. She said that a lot of people may not go to heaven, according to the church's teaching. To make her point, she used some statistic, something like only 1 person in 20 might be saved. Looking around the room at my classmates, I thought, boy, it's too bad about all the rest of you. I am certainly going to be that 1 in 20. We were tight, Jesus and me. I felt his call on my life from an early age and vividly remember the first time he spoke to my heart. I had sat enthralled as my Sabbath school teacher, with the aid of several brightly colored props, opened to my 4-year-old mind the story of salvation. After the story, she asked us if we wanted to be with Jesus. If so, she explained, we must do what he asks of us. In my little heart, I felt Jesus asking me to make a choice. So I said, yes, right then, and hooked up with a friend who has been my strength and salvation through some tough times. In my heart and mind, from that time on, whenever I felt his call, my answer has been yes. It has been my desire to serve the Lord regardless of what happened to me, or the hurtful choices I made. I believe the Father understood the emotional impact my early experiences would have on me. He knew the hurtful roads my twisted sense of values would take me down, and has stood by my side as a faithful friend and guide. In September 1960, when I was born, my parents were working together as teachers at a small Adventist school in Tennessee. Mom stayed home after she began having children. Our family started out in Tennessee and Georgia, and then shortly after my 2nd birthday, we moved to California where we lived until I was grown. In California, my father used his military benefits to continue his college education while working as a physical therapist for additional income. He would eventually earn his doctorate degree in biochemistry. With father back in school and mother at home, money ran short. My parents seldom shopped freely or kept the routine essentials on hand, like food. I remember prowling through the kitchen looking for something to eat. I came across a little bit of soy sauce and some nutritional yeast flakes and knew any stash of food found in our otherwise empty pantry must be considered off-limits. I ate some anyway. Daddy found out and punished me with a spanking, as he intended to share the items with everybody. The pastor's wife from our church brought us bags of food on a fairly regular basis. She also took us shopping for new shoes just before school started each year. During these early years, the church's food bank also aided in filling our habitually empty pantry. When Mother cooked dinner, we sat together at the table holding hands while Daddy said grace. Then they served us a fixed portion of food and insisted we eat it all. Food wasn't the only essential missing in our home. Clean surroundings and a safe environment topped the list of failures. The emotional strife and physical fighting between my parents poisoned our home. They routinely yelled and screamed at each other. One afternoon, from my front row seat at the foot of my parents' bed, I watched as the peace of a quiet afternoon quickly escalated into World War III. Mother had spent the better part of the day lying across her unmade bed, talking on the phone. Daddy had been gone since early morning. When he entered the bedroom, he spoke sharply to Mother about the clutter in the living room and kitchen. Mother heatedly snapped back that she had all she could do running after 5 children all day long. If he didn't like the way things were, he could clean them up himself. While they were talking, Mother got up and went into the bathroom. From my vantage point, I could see inside the open bathroom door. Daddy followed her across the room as they continued returning insult for insult. Their heated debate reached its climax when Mother, who was standing over the bathroom sink, reached out and swung the bathroom door, hard, hitting Daddy in the face as the door slammed shut. During the ruckus, I had cautiously slid as close to the bed as I could get, trying my best to be invisible. I now sat as still and quiet as possible, tears of terror streaming down my little cheeks. Daddy's red face told me he was really mad. I had learned from experience that when his face got red, anyone dumb enough to get noticed could get hurt. When the door hit Daddy, he screamed out in pain and rage as he drew his fist back and smashed it right through the hollow wood door. From my hiding place in the bedclothes piled at the foot of the bed, I let out an involuntary scream of terror. He turned to look in my direction. His eyes looked blank and empty. "Please don't spank me, Daddy," I begged. "I'll be good. I'll clean up the living room. Please don't spank me." He came across the room to where I was sitting. Grabbing me by the arm, he yanked me off the floor. I felt the first blow land on my bottom as he began dragging me toward the living room. "Please, Daddy, don't be mad. I'll clean the house, I promise," I sobbed. My bottom stung as his big hands smacked hard against my nearly naked skin. When we reached the living room, he released my arm, turned around, and went back to the bedroom. He never said a single word to me. At 6 years old, I knew how to quickly clear the clutter and make Daddy happy again. I flew through the living room and kitchen, dumping armloads of toys into our bedrooms, throwing trash away, washing up the dishes and sweeping the floors. I had just finished putting the last dishes away when Mother and Daddy came out of the bedroom. The house was now clean. There would be no more fighting today. To my knowledge, my mother did not defend me, nor did she offer to help straighten up the house. I have never understood my mother's actions. The violence unnerved me, making it no surprise that I wet the bed at night and sucked my thumb. Fridays tended to be the worst day of the week because Daddy liked to have everything in order and all of us clean and ready for bed by sundown on that night. He routinely flew into a tirade, demanding we clean the house, turning our Sabbath Eve into holy hell every Friday. Even as a child, his absurdity galled me. All his huffing and puffing so that at sundown we might welcome the Sabbath properly. Sometimes I truly thought the wrong people accidentally brought me home from the hospital. Lost and alone in my family, I wanted to be anywhere else.